نستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يقول تعالى في كتابه الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. All praise is due to Allah. We thank Him. We seek His forgiveness, and to Him alone do we all repent. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to forgive us for the evils within ourselves and the shortcomings of our deeds. Whomsoever He was to guide, no one can misguide that person. And whomsoever He was to misguide, no one can guide that person back to the straight path of Allah Azza wa Jalla without His permission. And I bear witness that there is no deity or divinity or sovereignty or king or God or Lord worthy of worship except for Allah Azza wa Jalla, and that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam truly is His final prophet and messenger. May all the peace and blessings be upon him, his family members and companions, and all those who follow his way until the end of time. Ameen. Amma ba'd. We live in a time where, even though we're putting in a lot of work in our actions, through our da'wah, showing people true Islam, the beautiful Islam through our actions, even though we are doing this, we are living in a time where we are constantly attacked. Whether it's in our personal lives, we are attacked for our religion. Whether it's on the media, politically, we are attacked for our religion. And sometimes we might sit there and say, we're doing so much good, but it's not getting anywhere. And we need to ask ourselves, was this the only unique situation? Or was this situation unique just to us? No, it was not. The prophets of Allah Azza wa Jal all faced bigotry and mockery. And our beloved Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam faced it the harshest. And it is us, who are the followers of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, it is up to us to look at how he dealt with people attacking him and how he was able to go forward to build a legacy. So I want to talk about what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did, along with some other prophet, what they have done and what we can learn from. The Prophet ﷺ, just imagine, at the age of 40 he receives revelation, he receives prophethood, and at that point everybody loved him. Everybody respected him. He was named the Sadiq al-Amin, the most respected, the most honest, the most trustworthy. Everybody trusted him with everything and anything they owned. Whenever there was a quarrel or any kind of argument or fight, they would call the Prophet ﷺ, the wisest amongst them, to deal with their problems and solve the issue. He was revered and respected within his community, in the tribe of Quraysh, in the city of Mecca. But from the moment he received prophethood, all of that changed. They attacked him as if he was a completely different man. They called him a liar, a magician, a soothsayer, a person who brings harm upon his community, who has broken up families and broken up marriages, all for this Islam, this religion. And they attacked him left and right. Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, she said that one time the Prophet ﷺ was praying in front of the Kaaba in Mecca, and the Meccans came, the disbelievers came, and they spilled camel guts all over the Prophet ﷺ, and they were so heavy that he fell flat on the ground. His entire chest and body hit the ground. The Prophet ﷺ is trying to get up and he's shivering. Everyone's laughing at him. Fatima says that I rushed over to help my father. I helped clean him up. And I was crying. What were they doing to my father? This man only wants what is best for them. They just don't know. The Prophet ﷺ sees her crying. He wipes her tears and he says, Inna Allah nasirun abaki. Allah Azza wa Jal will protect and give victory to your father. He's got my back. He's telling her, he understands firmly. Don't judge our outcome by what you see here. Every prophet had to go through a struggle, and I am no different. In fact, I will have one of the strongest and hardest struggles. أشدكم بلاء الأنبياء ثم الأمثل فالأمثل. The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith that those who were tested with the most harsh of trials and tribulations are the prophets, and then those who are in lesser righteousness of them, and so on and so forth. So the Prophet ﷺ were tested the harshest, and he understood that, he accepted that when he took on this message. And he's telling Fatima, don't worry, I know the situation looks bad, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give me victory. Allah has my back. 13 years of calling his own people to Islam, and they rejected him and they dejected him. About 10 years or so, 10 years of him going to people's houses and then shutting the doors on his face. The Prophet ﷺ one time goes to sleep, wakes up the next morning, and he recalls a dream that he had that night. And the dream was of a garden, a paradise of some sort, full of cultivation and growth, palm trees everywhere. And the dreams of the prophets, they know that these are signs. These are messages from Allah Azza wa Jalla. So the Prophet ﷺ woke up, and he said that the interpretation of this dream is acceptance. I will be accepted by the people of the land that I saw. SubhanAllah. This Prophet ﷺ, he never gave up. Never gave up. You know, like, there are prophets that could not convince their people. And they told Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I've done everything I could do. There's nothing more I could do. I've done everything you asked me to do. But no one accepted Islam. And these prophets will come on the Day of Judgment with almost to no followers. But the Prophet ﷺ, subhanAllah, there was a reason he was chosen as Khatam al-Anbiya, the seal of all prophets. He never gave up. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even describes his actions in the Qur'an. He says in Surah Al-Kahf that we read today, just the 6th verse, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, فَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ عَلَىٰ آثَارِهِمْ إِن لَّمْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِهَذَا الْحَدِيثِ أَسَفًا. He says, you're concerned over the salvation of these people, your people. You are so concerned about them to the point that you are killing yourself, O Muhammad. Literally putting his life in danger because he's so concerned about the well-being and the future and the place or the final destination that his people will end up in. Extremely concerned. So he has this dream. And he interprets it as the place that will accept him, and he understands that he needs to leave Mecca to find a place that will help him so he can come back and convince more people. And at that time, only 2 places, 2 locations fit the description of his dream. Yathrib, which is what was later known as Al-Madinah, and Al-Ta'if. These 2 cities fit the description of his dream. The Prophet ﷺ decided to go to Al-Ta'if. But little did he know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wrote his future in Al-Madinah. But he chose Al-Ta'if because Al-Ta'if was closer. It was just beyond one mountain, one huge mountain. He chose Al-Ta'if because they had some of the same leaders as Mecca. If he could convince them, they have power, they have authority, they can help him in convincing the leaders of Mecca. It was closer. It was easier. It just made more sense. Al-Madinah, Yathrib, was farther away. And it was just a bunch of kids who used to run around beating each other up because their fathers used to kill each other. It's very tribalistic. Why would I go there? SubhanAllah. The Prophet ﷺ takes Zayd ibn Haritha, his adopted son, and he embarks on this journey to Al-Ta'if with all hope. He's so encouraged by this dream. So hopeful in these people. And he goes there for 2 full weeks. He's calling these people to Islam. 2 full weeks. He barely sleeps. He's calling people to Islam left and right, from door to door, from the leaders to the peasants, to everybody. He's calling everyone to Islam. And they're not accepting. They're treating him harsher than his people from Mecca. The Prophet ﷺ is just, he's sad and he's worried, but does he give up? No, he doesn't. Little does he know that the people of Al-Ta'if, this entire 2 weeks, were planning a horrendous plot to kick him out of Al-Ta'if. They came up with this plot, this plan, and they executed this plan 2 weeks after the Prophet ﷺ has tried to convince them of Islam and of the oneness of Allah Azza wa Jalla. They execute the plot. And we're all familiar with this plot. They made 2 straight, very long lines of people standing right next to each other. From the heart of the city of Al-Ta'if to the outskirts outside of the city of Al-Ta'if. An entire 2 lines with a narrow distance in between them so that Muhammad ﷺ and Zayd ibn Haritha can walk right through it. They won't be able to get out of it and they will be forced to follow that line. We've all heard of this story. I heard it when I was young. But there was a new key detail that I heard that, subhanAllah, blew me away. I used to think that it was just, a small line. They would kick him outside the city and that was it. Ibn Ishaq, he reports that this line that they formed was 30 kilometers long. Over 18 miles. The Prophet ﷺ, for hours upon hours, was forced to walk through this line with them spitting at him, stoning him with rocks. He's bleeding. They're making jokes about him, mocking him, hurting him, abusing him. And when he finally gets out, he's bleeding. And there's rocks in his sandals and his shoes. And he doesn't know where he's at. It's the corner of 2 mountains. It looks like a cave. He goes there and he stumbles upon a garden. And he sits in the garden. And he makes dua. What kind of dua would he make? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends Jibreel, Angel Gabriel, down with the angel of the mountains, Malak al-Jibal. And the angel of the mountains looks at Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and he says, "Oh Muhammad, give me the commandment, give me the order, and I will take these Akhshaban, these 2 mountains around the city, and I will destroy the city. Utter destruction. No one will ever hear of anyone from Al-Ta'if ever again. Just give me the order." But what was the dua of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam at that time? He said, "No, don't do it. Because I pray to Allah Azza wa Jalla that He may allow one of their offspring to accept Islam." SubhanAllah. I have friends from Al-Ta'if, and they tell me that if it wasn't for the mercy of the Prophet ﷺ on that day, they would not be here today. They would be in the books of history. SubhanAllah. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. And we have verily sent you, O Muhammad, as a mercy to the worlds. That was His mercy. Now this story of Al-Ta'if we've heard many times, and it's told so that we can show this one characteristic. Mercy, forgiveness of the Prophet ﷺ, and how we should follow him in that characteristic. But there is one other characteristic that we hardly talk about that I want to mention in this khutbah. And it has to do with another prophet. Prophet Yunus alayhi salam. Prophet Yunus, subhanallah, he was sent to people very similar to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And believe it or not, Prophet Yunus was the first prophet. The first prophet the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ heard about. Up until that time, 10 or so years of calling people to Islam, of getting revelation, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ only knows of the name of one other prophet, Yunus, Jonah alayhi salam. Allah had wisdom behind it. He was sent to the same type of people. People who were pagans, who did not believe in the Abrahamic faiths. People who did not believe in life after death, like the people of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it's very, very rare for people in history to not believe in something after death. People had so many different traditions and beliefs Even in the concepts of reincarnation, there's so many other beliefs of what happens after death. But they were the few, rare people who did not believe in anything after death. And Yunus went to them, and he tried to talk to them. Many years they rejected him and rejected him like Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when it looked and it seemed as if they were not going to accept, he told them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's punishment is going to come to you. And they still didn't believe him. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not punish a people based off their actions, their disbeliefs. It's not based off of the disbelief that they are destroyed or punishment sent upon them. It is based off of their oppression. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Qur'an, وَتِلْكَ الْقُرَىٰ أَهْلَكْنَاهُمْ لَمَّا ظَلَمُوا وَجَعَلْنَا لِمَهْلِكِهِمْ مَوْعِدًا. These were the tribes, the cities, the towns, the people, the groups who, when they oppressed others, when they showed aggression, when they were violent, when they took the rights of others, that's when we sent destruction upon them, and it was a timely destruction, a fixed time. So Yunus warns his people, listen, now you're not just disbelieving, but now you are actually oppressing me and my people, so I will run away from you. And Allah's punishment will come. They still didn't believe. Yunus turns around and goes. Out of frustration with his people, without taking permission from his Lord, he leaves. And they start seeing the skies and the thunder and the lightning and the storm and the rain starting to come towards them. And in that moment, little did Yunus alayhi salam know that his people, when they saw that, they were like, this is no joke. He was telling the truth. And they all accepted Islam. But Yunus didn't know. He fled. He ran away. And that storm didn't go to his people anymore. It followed him. And he rode on a boat in the sea. And the storm followed him. And it was so severe and so bad that the ship was in the middle of this storm that it was about to flip, so they threw away their luggage. And it still wasn't enough. So they drew lots on who was the cursed person, or who was the person that's gonna, make us drown, the superstitions that they had. And it came out Lut. They did it again. It came out Lut. It can't be Lut, man. He's a righteous man. They did it a third time. It came out Lut. They had no other option. They threw Lut in the ocean. Yunus. They threw Yunus alayhi salam in the ocean. Yunus alayhi salam is eaten up by a whale, swallowed whole. And one of the scholars, he says that he's in three darknesses. In the darkness of the stomach of the whale, in the darkness of the depths of the ocean, and in the darkness of night. Yunus thought he was dead. And then what happens is that he starts to hear the rocks from the bottom of the sea making tasbih, praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, glorifying His name. And that's when he realizes that he's not dead yet. So he tries to get himself to maneuver himself so that he can make sujood, he can prostrate. But it's so hard because the acid from the stomach of the whale is burning his clothes and his skin. But he finally eventually gets into that position and he makes the all-time famous dua, La ilaha illa anta subhanak, inni kuntu min al-zalimin. There is no Lord but you, O Allah. Verily I am from the oppressors. He recognized his wrong by leaving without the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness in this way. Eventually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts it, and the whale is ordered to come up to an island and to spit him out. And he's laying there and the sun comes out and he's screaming, La ilaha illa anta subhanak, inni kuntu min al-zalimin, because his skin is being burned from the sun. After some time, he regains his health and finds his way back to his people and finds them all accepting his message. Subhanallah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, subhanallah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts your forgiveness, specifically in the way, the dua, the way he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made his life and his death, the life after death a success. If the whale didn't eat him, it didn't swallow him, he would have died. And he was able to go back to his people and they accepted his faith, his message. Now fast forward to the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He just left the Ta'if. He's struggling, he's bleeding, he's upset. It's the worst day of his life. Aisha radiallahu anha, the wife of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, many years later, she asks him, Ya Rasulullah, was Uhud the worst day of your life? He says, no, Ya Aisha. Even though it was a battle and a lot of Muslims died and it's basically not a victory. It was like a defeat for us. He said, that was not the worst day of my life. The worst day of my life was that day of Al-Ta'if, when they kicked me out. And he's bleeding, sitting there confused. And we said that he sat down in that garden. And the owners of the garden noticed him and they saw him being kicked out and they just felt sorry for him. So they ordered their servant to come and give him some of the fruits of the garden. The servant comes with some grapes to the Prophet ﷺ and hands him some grapes and he tells him, this is from the owners of the garden. Help yourself. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ takes one grape, says, Bismillah, and eats it. And the servant is confused. He's like, Bismillah, what? Like, where are you from? I have never heard of this. Where is this? You're not from around here. Where are you from? Who are you? So Muhammad ﷺ looks at him and he says, what's your name? Who are you? Where are you from? So he says, my name is Addas and I'm from Nainawa. And that's an area in Iraq. The same area where Yunus ﷺ, the only prophet the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ knows about, was from. So the Prophet, after all of his horrible circumstances that he's been through, he looks at him and he says, with all excitement, with all happiness, surprised, from Nainawa? The city of Al-Abd al-Salih, Al-Nabi al-Salih, Yunus ibn Matta, from the same city of Yunus? And he said, how do you know about Yunus? He said, I am Muhammad, a prophet of Allah, and Yunus is a prophet of Allah, and the prophets are brothers in Islam. And Addas becomes a Muslim. In fact, if you go to that area near the garden, today, there's a masjid named Masjid Addas, after this man. Subhanallah. The Prophet ﷺ, and I'll end with this point, it's a magnificent point. It's poetic justice by Allah Azza wa Jal. The Prophet ﷺ was ridiculed for years, pushed away, went from being known as the best to the worst. People hating him, hating on his family, killing his family members. In that same year or so, his Aam al-Huzn, the year of sorrow and grief and sadness, his uncle dies and his wife dies. And he's struggling. The worst day of his life, as he said himself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends him one of the descendants of the only prophet that he knows, to show him that no matter what you go through, no matter how many people reject you, I promise you your legacy will continue and people will follow you and your message until the end of time. Subhanallah. In that time of weakness, where the Prophet ﷺ is down, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends him in a form of poetic justice that you will have people who will carry on your message and your legacy. Do not fear. Do not fear. And we are here today, brothers and sisters, following the teachings of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imagine, subhanAllah, when we meet him on that day, and he sees us with the same happiness that he's seen Addas, then he's seen the follower of Yunus, who accepted Islam. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه السميع العليم. الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. I want to summarize really quickly for the brothers and sisters who didn't get a chance to hear what we talked about in the khutbah. It was the story of the Prophet ﷺ and how he was going through hardships, and how the only prophet up until that point that he knew about was Yunus, Jonah, and he went through hardships as well, and he knows about his story. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it very clear to him that even though Yunus went through all of that hardship, there was light in the end of the tunnel. And the same thing happens, and we are the witnesses And the testimony to that promise of Allah Azza wa Jal, people have come many years after him, but still believe him. And we are the ones who will be called brothers by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it is up to us to take his legacy forward. It is up to us that when people attack us, for us not to be down, for us not to be organizing MSA events, masjid events, and then all of a sudden people in the media are hating on Muslims and Islam, and we feel like all the work we've done all year was discredited by this one statement. No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has your back. You keep doing the righteous good deeds that this religion truly teaches, and you will see people enter the fold of Islam day to day without any force, without this whole nonsense with the sword, without any of this stuff. They enter because they truly see a light at the end of a tunnel, a legacy of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Live it in your actions and continue this legacy of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات المؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك قوي مجيب الدعوات. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. اللهم كن مع إخواننا المستضعفين المظلومين في كل بقاع الأرض يا رب العالمين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. وأقم الصلاة.